Hey everybody, welcome back, and let's continue our year in review series. Now, we've covered Chase, we've covered American Express, we've covered Wells Fargo, we've covered Capital One. Still plan on covering Citi, still plan on covering US Bank and Bank of America, and maybe doing some revisits on this toward the end of the year. Hopefully get another creator or two involved, that would be great. But today we're going to talk about Bilt, because when it comes to Bilt, the first word that comes to mind for their year, to kind of like sum up their year, is unfortunately Yips. Why? Because I've never seen a rewards company or a credit card company have the Yips as bad as Bilt has had the Yips since the Wall Street Journal article came out about Bilt and Wells Fargo. So overall for the year, what would I give them as a grade? Like as an A, B, C, whatever. I don't know that I could go higher than a C minus. And that's including the fact that Bilt has added more transfer partners throughout this year than I think they did last year. You know, over the course of this year, they've added Marriott, they've added Hilton, they've added Core Life Limited, they've added TAP Air Portugal, they added they added Alaska Airlines. Now, yes, they did technically lose Hawaiian Airlines, but that is being absorbed into Alaska. And then their contract with American Airlines did lapse, but that seems to be because American Airlines is more intent on doing their own thing anyway. So I don't know that I would necessarily deduct points for losing American if American wasn't going to be involved in being a transfer partner going forward. Now, that is presumptive to say. I don't know the full details of everything, so I can't state authoritatively, oh, it's because of American, and Bilt had no problem, and there was no problems with Bilt, right? But that was probably the first canary in the coal mine that this year was going to be a little bit different. Now, over the course of the year, their rent day promotions have gotten less. Weirder is not the right word, have gotten less lucrative for many of their members, especially after they announced their status tiers toward the end of 2023 and started leaning into those status tiers. But since about midway through the year, we haven't seen as many really lucrative transfer bonus opportunities on rent day. And the most recent rent day had the unfortunate reality of being a targeted rent day where you only had two tiers, either 50% bonus or 100% bonus. And again, those are amazing bonuses for British Airways when you take into account that, you know, right now at the beginning of November, Capital One is only able to offer a 20% transfer bonus to British Airways. Chase in October was doing a 30%. Like 50% is still bigger than anyone else has gotten this year, right? And taking a step back, like Bilt offers more lucrative transfer bonuses than any other reward point ecosystem. But because it's not as big as it was, because it's not as ostentatious as it was, like Bilt has lost some credibility. I don't necessarily know that the loss in credibility is fair, but in the underlying and fundamental aspects of the program, Bilt has developed the Yips, and it's not good. So why do I give them a C minus? While they've added transfer partners, that's great. They have also been really bad at communicating massive changes to the program, and that far outweighs whether or not they are the best transfer partner for a Core Life Limited in all of the credit card ecosystem. I don't necessarily use a Core Life Limited, but you know, it is great that Bilt is 3-2 as opposed to Citi's 2-1 or Capital One's 2-1. So like getting that is like cool. Instituting the changes that you've instituted in the way that you've instituted them outweighs on, you know, my made up grading system more than just adding transfer partners. So for those unaware, and I don't know how you'd be unaware, Bilt changed rent day fundamentally from being an avenue for creating up to 10,000 bonus points every rent day to only being able to create 1,000 bonus points every rent day. They didn't really explain the rationale why in a clear and concise manner. Now, there are interviews that were done through email with the points guys. There were, you know, additional, you know, trying to get ahead of things in later months. But when they initially announced the change, it was done in like 3-point font, as my co-host on the Stack Your Points podcast, Lonnie, mentioned. It was done in like 3-point font. It was buried in the terms and condition changes in an email about rent day that was for, I believe that was for August rent day. It was either August or September's rent day that was highlighting that in October this was going to be changing. It was August because there was going to be. It was in July for August. So August was the first rent day that you were going to, first of the last rent days that you were going to get 10,000 points. September was the last rent day you were going to get 10,000 points. And then October was going to be the first of the new rent days where you were only going to get 1,000 points. And that created an uproar, right? Bilt's corporate communications have been terrible. Now, I did a video about this. I'll put the card up here. And also Lonnie did a video about Bilt's not dead yet, but he highlighted some things that Bilt needed to change, and their communications and getting back to basics on things was definitely a thing highlighted. I'll put a link to that video in my description for this video, as well as a card somewhere up here. So definitely check out Lonnie's video on that one. And I did a video about it as well. We'll do the self-promotion. We'll stop the self-promotion for now. But Bilt this year, since the article that came out from the Wall Street Journal highlighting, Bilt and Wells Fargo's difficulties, which I do think was overblown. Since that article, Bilt has stumbled at every possible turn. Changes to terms and conditions are not communicated properly. Changes to rent day that we saw in November have not been communicated properly. By properly, I mean like, we find out about rent day usually around the same time every month. Now, it changes based on weekends. It changes based on like when the Friday or that Monday is and things like that. But that doesn't help things, right? We've had folks like, there have been things like Richard Kerr going to Reddit and kind of like highlighting why they chose to do the things that they did, but doing it after the fact, right? If Bilt is going to make major changes to a program, if any of these issuers are going to make major changes to their program, you should give plenty of lead time to those changes, right? Like US Bank with their new Smartly card, when they announced that Smartly was going to become a thing, announced what was going to be needed to qualify for the 4% on Smartly, announced that there were going to be these changes going forward, and did changes to their terms and conditions and announced those to their customers well before Smartly has officially launched. Now, it's still rumored that Smartly is going to be launching on November 12th. We'll see. There are other rumors that US Bank hasn't addressed, but that's not for this video. But US Bank took the time months in advance to highlight what was going to be needed. Maybe they didn't do that as clearly as they should have, but they did a heck of a lot better than Bilt has done. Bilt, on the other hand, announced massive changes, yes, months ahead of time, but in 3-point font and gave no rationale for why. Now, we don't know what the rationale would be, but most likely, rent day was getting pretty expensive on the 175% bonuses that were being given out to platinum members, or more likely the 125% bonuses on silver members, because there are most likely more silver members than platinum members in Bilt. So changes have not been communicated as well as they could have been. They've done things like announce, we're going to expand opportunities for rewards in places like healthcare and student loans, and like said this in the abstract. And yes, they've come out with the Walgreens partnership, which I think is going to be valuable in time. And I like the fact that it takes like L2 data, or I think L3 data, and itemizes everything on your Walgreens so that, gift card purchases don't get you points at Walgreens with Bilt. That's great. That's a great way to like start mitigating some of the problems, or to preemptively mitigate potential problems. That's awesome, right? Bilt overall needs to go back to school on corporate communications. And I said that at the time of my video. Lonnie kind of hinted at that. I've been saying it every time I mention Bilt, because this year has been an unmitigated disaster in terms of communicating with their customers about what is happening with the program. So if there's anything I want to see in 2025, I don't want to see new partners. I might want to see 1 or 2 new cards. I want to see something concrete about mortgages, because it was said that mortgages were coming. It's still up in the air with mortgages, and like, it's probably way more expensive than they thought, and that's fine, right? But when it comes to communicating what's happening, I want rock solid communication, right? I want rock solid communication on things like student loans, because if you're going to be able to get points on student loans for student loan payments, That needs to be communicated in a better way than 3-point font 2 months in advance of it, right? These are changes that require actual communication. Those will be changes that require actual communication. For 2024, right, adding Air Portugal, adding a Core Live Limited and being the best transfer option for a Core Live Limited is great. Adding Hilton, even if it's a 1-to-1, is fine if you want to top up your Hilton points, right? Adding Marriott when they did, I believe they added Marriott in early 2024. Awesome. Same 1-to-1 ratio. My problems with the Marriott Bonvoy program withstanding, like, it's good that they got Marriott. Now, Bilt is the only transfer partner for all 4 major hotel programs. Remains to be seen how long the contract with Hyatt, World of Hyatt is. If they lose World of Hyatt, that's going to be a problem. For right now, Bilt has all the 4 major hotels, and they've added a Core Live Limited, which is nice. The additions to the product are great. Everything behind the scenes needs an overhaul. Corporate communications needs an overhaul. Customer service needs an overhaul. Customer service in relationship to Wells Fargo with the card needs an overhaul. If you go on to the Bilt Rewards subreddit, it's awesome that they set up their own subreddit. It's awesome that they answer customer complaints through their subreddit. To what satisfaction, I don't know. I am not a Bilt card holder, but the fact that there isn't a clear and concise answer from Bilt or Wells Fargo and folks go to Reddit to complain to eventually potentially get answers is not good and needs to stop, right? What I want to see out of Bilt in 2025 to raise from like their C- rating, their C- grade right now, and it's just a grade. Like if I rated them in like the S to D tier, like they're still like an A tier option because they have a card for no annual fee that's awesome. They have more transfer partners than most of the banks. They have all 4 major hotel chains, and they have the best transfer rate with a Core Life Limited, and they're the only transfer partner, the only official transfer partner for Alaska Airlines. And Alaska has made it clear that the American Express loophole will probably be closing sooner than later. So Bilt overall, like on an S to D tier type thing, would probably still be like A tier. They would still be really, really good. But in terms of like a yearly grade, I can only give them a C-. Everything that's been happening since that article has been negative in terms of the operations of Bilt. Yes, they added Walgreens, but it's 1 point per dollar at Walgreens, where like, yes, it'd be 2 points per dollar with the Bilt card, but the Bilt card, like the Sapphire Preferred that it's modeled on, is not the greatest of earning cards. I give them a pass on not having a welcome offer because, again, it's the only card that gives you $0 in terms of fees, $0 fee rent payments for utilizing the card. That's unheard of. That's still great. And Wells Fargo's footing a heck of a bill on that one. So like that, the fact that you're getting like 12,000 points for no fee is great. You're saving, 3% across the board. And over the course of the year, that 3%, it's a little bit of real money, a few $100. So I'm not going to discount that. But Bilt overall in 2025 needs to do a few things. They absolutely need to update the back end, the customer service on their end, the customer service with regards to the credit card. All of that needs an overhaul. Their corporate communications, like changes to rent day, need to be preemptively communicated and in a clear and concise way, right? November's rent day was seemingly by chance, and it's fine, right? You just say this will be by chance. This is mainly going to be because we want more people to utilize their Bilt points, and those who aren't utilizing their points in the most effective manner, they're going to get the higher tier bonus. And if you have status with us, that's amazing. Please keep being a status member. Thank you for what you put into the program. We're going to do something special for you in place of this random targeting. Something like that would have gone a long way, right? Because you have platinum members getting a 50% transfer bonus, which is amazing still, The complaints were you have platinum members getting 50%. I am a blue member. I was targeted with a 100% transfer bonus. Now, did I partake in it? No. Why? Because I don't have a need for 12,000 British Airways Avios right now. And 12,000 Avios is not going to get me particularly far. And I don't have a means to utilize that. So a speculative transfer to me didn't make sense. But that's just me, right? But I was still targeted for the 100% because they want to get their points out there. They want people to use their points. And I get that. And I think those who do not use their points as much as other Bilt users were targeted with the 100% bonus, as opposed to those who regularly utilize their points were probably targeted with the 50%. It's the only theory I'm going to put out there. But either way, when they selectively do this, they should probably communicate it a little bit better than no communication. Right? Bilt is the underdog. Bilt is, a company that really, like, if they're making changes and they're doing things differently, should explain why. They don't get the same sort of like, oh, well, they're doing that because they're Chase. They're doing that because they're American Express. They're doing that because they're Capital One. Like American Express, Capital One, Chase, to a much lesser extent, Citi, they earned over time the ability to just like make changes and not really have to communicate why. Wells Fargo coming into the travel game the way that they would have to do that. At least in my mind, that would be an expectation, right? But Wells Fargo is a pretty big bank, and if they didn't make an update, some folks would give them a pass. I might not, and I'm a pretty big Wells Fargo guy, but anyway, tangent. So once again, fix your corporate communications, fix your customer service. Those should be the two priorities over everything else in 2025. Reestablish trust with your customers, because 2024 has felt like a year where Bilt customers lost a ton of trust in Bilt, and I don't know what Bilt is doing to fix it. Have a concrete plan, announce a concrete plan for mortgages, when to expect it, what to expect, that sort of thing. What banks you'll have agreements with, you anticipate having agreements with, that sort of thing. Because if you're only going to launch them and it's a soft launch and it's only one partner, like, set that expectation early. Because the folks who are waiting for mortgages, and it's not an insignificant number, if you launch mortgages and their mortgage isn't covered, they're going to be pissed, right? Now, the other thing I want to see from Bilt is one of two things in 2025. I think there's an avenue. Now, again, I don't know the feasibility for this, but I do think that there is an avenue for business rent to be an option, to be a possibility. And business rent will bring in a lot more money than residential rent, will bring in a good amount of money as opposed to residential mortgages, and could be a way to help ease concerns with Wells Fargo that business rent should be an avenue that Bilt pursues in 2025. Creating a Bilt business card that earns Bilt points for business rent, for business expenses, will go a long way. Or just model it after the Wells Fargo Signify Business Cash and just make it a flat 2x earning on all categories except for rent, 1x on rent, and figure it out from there, right? Give Wells a bigger cut of the business spend, and you might see an opportunity for a really strong card. The other thing I want to see from Bilt is either the introduction of an annual fee card, whether that's in association with mortgages or not, but some sort of annual fee card that will help bring in money for Bilt, and start like the process of renegotiating with Wells Fargo to kind of cut back on things, because Bilt has a good chunk of money, but an annual fee card will help like offset some of that, so that Bilt can take on the transaction fees to bring that in-house and let them handle it, so that that's stuff that Wells Fargo doesn't have to cover, and help the Wells Fargo and Bilt relationship. So an annual fee card of some sort, whether it's 95, whether it's a bigger annual fee card that gets like priority pass and global entry and all of that, one of those two would be great. A business card would be amazing. And then finally, to further in the, assisting with the Wells Fargo relationship, however much it needs to be assisted, because it's fine. It's probably fine. Further assistance with that is make Wells Fargo a transfer partner, which I think would be fun. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Again, Bilt overall in the year, nice to add more transfer partners. Losing American was a pain in the butt, but I don't know how much of that was Bilt versus how much of that was American Airlines, right? But you gained Alaska, you gained a lot of hotels, you gained Air Portugal, you've added Accor Live Limited. Like, you don't need to worry about transfer partners next year. Focus on fixing the customer service aspect of things. Rebuild your trust with your customers, because I can tell you from where I sit in the sidelines, you've lost a lot of trust from customers. Fix that. Make that the priority. But yeah, overall, again, about a C- for me. I couldn't give them lower just because they did add a lot of good transfer partners, and a lot of their problems have been recent. So like, if this was before the Wells Fargo article, they would have been like a B. They would have been B minus. They added Hilton, they added Marriott at the time. That was awesome. They added Alaska and they made that partnership. They started expanding that partnership. That was great. That was all awesome. And then they developed the Yips. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. If you like what I do, hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to support me here on YouTube, consider joining my channel membership. That is the Tidbits Collector membership. If you like what I do and want to see me in a different environment, check out the Stack Your Points podcast. I record that on Monday nights with Lonnie from the Call Me Lonnie channel, RJ from Do You Take Cards, and Tariq from Reeks Rewards. And check out my pinned comment for ways to support me outside of YouTube, whether that be buy me a coffee, Ko-fi, referral links, any of those. Anything will help. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.